Perfect. All right. So to get started with DocuSign and get access to the GAR forms, we actually have to get started in our opportunity. And our opportunity is our sales pipeline management tool that helps us keep track of all the opportunities for closing that we have. So I've gone through and I've created an opportunity. So I'm going to click on the icon of the two hands shaking right over here, opportunities. Then I'm going to go to all opportunities because this is just how I prefer to see my opportunities. And here's the opportunity that I've already created. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 Main Street. You can see here I filled in as much of the information that I have. I have my contacts already added in command as a contact and my estimated list price and commission rate. I've also gone over here to property and I've updated the property information here. It's important that you add as much information into the opportunity in command as possible, because when we go to create our room in DocuSign, DocuSign is going to pull in that information about our contacts, about the list price, about the property address, and the two systems will sync to update accordingly. So add in as much information as possible. Now I'm going to go to the Documents tab here in Command, and you'll notice I don't have a document checklist yet, because over here on the left-hand side, it says pick checklist type. I'm going to click on this dropdown and it's going to give me the option of residential and commercial. I am sure that 99% of the time it is going to be a residential transaction. So just go ahead and select residential. And then it's going to pull up the list of documents that we are going to need for this transaction for compliance. So this more or less acts like a checklist. So that way, if you're like, oh, what documents do I need? It says right here, required, conditional required. One thing I do want to point out about this, well, actually two things. The first is this is not an exhaustive list. This is just going to be a list of the most likely needed documents that you'll have throughout a transaction. So there may be a lot more documents that you actually end up needing to upload. And the second thing it's really important to keep in mind is there are no forms in command. All of the forms that you're going to use for your contract are actually going to be in DocuSign. So a lot of agents will be like, oh, I can't find this form in command. And it's like, well, it doesn't actually live in command. It lives in DocuSign. So just keep that in mind. So now that we're here, we've selected our checklist opportunity type as residential. Now we need to create our DocuSign room. The way that we're going to do that is up here in the top right-hand corner, there's a button that says start a transaction. We're going to click start a transaction. It is very important that when you're going through the process of managing this opportunity and going to create a room, that you click start a transaction in command. One of the main benefits of working with DocuSign is that the DocuSign system and command systems are linked and they work together. So by clicking start a transaction in command, you are syncing this opportunity to the room. If you do not click start a transaction, you one will not create a room, or two, if you do create a room directly in DocuSign, you will not be able to retroactively connect that room to an opportunity. So just be sure to click start a transaction. So I'm going to click start a transaction. And now it's going to pop up a new tab for me to log in. One thing to keep in mind here as well is if you have pop-up blockers on, it will prevent DocuSign from loading, so that some people have gotten errors there. So just to make sure that if you have the pop-up blocker on, or if you see a little red box in your URL bar, to click on that and allow pop-ups from DocuSign and command. So I'm just going to log in using my DocuSign account information that I created in command. And now I'm in my new room that I just created. Up here in the top left-hand corner, it has the name of the room, which is going to be the exact same name as my opportunity. So 1, 2, 3, 4 Main Street dash Stark Potts dash listing. It pulls in the address. It has an ID number. Now, this ID number is more of a DocuSign 2.0 feature, but you are able to email documents directly into your room, and you would use this ID number. So if you roll your mouse over, it gives you instructions on how to do that. And then our expected closing date that pulls in from from Command as well. Every time that you create a new DocuSign room, it's going to take you here into the Documents tab right here. However, we're going to do two things first today. The first thing is we need to confirm your NERDS ID number. Your NERDS ID number is what's going to give you access to the GAR forms. It's going to confirm with DocuSign that you are actually a member of the National Association of Realtors, a member of GAR, and you have the right to use the copywritten GAR forms. You will only need to do this one time. So the first time you do this, you should never have to do it again. Knock on wood. So there are two ways that we can confirm your NERDS ID, and we'll walk through both of them. The first and probably the most simple, in my opinion, is once you've gone through and you've created your very first room in DocuSign, you can come up here to the top right-hand corner and click Add. And I'm going to select DocuSign Forms. And it's going to give me this pop-up window with a handful of different different logos. I'm going to select the National Association of Realtors. I know it seems logical to you, like, oh, if I need GAR forms, that I would select the Georgia Association of Realtors. Nope. We are going to confirm our NERDS ID, which is our National Realtor Identification Number. So I'm going to click on the NAR logo. Now we need our NERDS ID. I've only come in contact with like 2 agents that actually know their NERDS ID. So thankfully, DocuSign has this handy dandy link here that says find your member ID. So I'm going to click on that, and that's going to open up another browser window or tab. And I can use my last name, email address, and or license number to look up my NERDS ID. So I'm going to use my last name and my license number. I'm going to click submit. And here is my NERDS ID. Now, one thing to keep in mind, let me just copy this. Okay, let's go back. The last name that you use here needs to be the same last name that you use to register with the National Association of Realtors or the Atlanta Realtor Association. If for whatever reason you've had a name change since then, use your original name that you used, or let the ARA know that you've had a name change and they can update your file, because if the names do not match, they will not give you your NERDS ID will not populate and you will not have access to the GAR forms. So I'm going to close this tab because I don't need it anymore. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to paste in my member ID. Perfect. And then I'm going to type in my last name here. Again, this is the same last name that I used when I registered for the ARA. And then the association is the Georgia Association of Realtors. So I'm just going to select that here from this drop-down menu. And thankfully, they are now in alphabetical order. So I'm going to click Georgia Association of Realtors and then validate. It's going to let me know I've validated one association membership, so I'm good to go. Now, if this is your very first time confirming your NERDS ID, which it should be, you'll then get a secondary pop-up window here that says accept the terms and conditions for the Georgia Association of Realtors. You want to click accept. And then once you do that, you'll get this pop-up window, which has groups and libraries down here on the left-hand side, and says GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors. And that's how you know that you have access to the GAR forms. Any questions on confirming your NERDS ID? All right. So that is the first way that you can confirm your NERDS ID, and we're going to quickly walk through this second. Let's say something happens to your account and somehow your NERDS ID gets disconnected and you no longer have access to the GAR forms, and you're like, oh, I need them. I have to write a contract. The other way that you can confirm your NERDS ID is up here in the top right-hand corner where you see your initials or your picture. Click on that and then select Preferences. And then over on the left-hand side, we'll select Integrations. And then it's going to show us here the national associations. Well, national associations won't be there. Let me just click Remove real fast. We'll just click on here. We'll click Add Provider. It's the exact same steps as we just went through. We'll select the National Association of Realtors. I'm going to paste in my NERDS ID, type in my last name that I used to join You Atlanta Realtor Association, select Georgia Association of Realtors, and validate. So those are the two different ways that you can confirm your NERDS ID. You must have a NERDS ID number in order to have access to the GAR forms, which means that you have to be a member of the board. And it may take 2 weeks from the day that you join the Realtor Association to when you actually receive your NERDS ID. So just know that if you're in a time crunch to get an offer put in, that you need to have had your NERDS ID already provided. Any questions about confirming our NERDS ID before we jump in and start adding information for our room? All right. So I'm going to click on dashboards. I want to go back to the room that I just created. And here's my room. And then I'm going to select back into documents, because let's kind of pretend that we didn't have to confirm our NERDS ID. We just click start a transaction and it takes me right here into the documents tab within my DocuSign room. My first instinct here is to go ahead and start adding all my forms. I need my purchase and sale agreement or my listing agreement or whatever. Don't do that. Before you start actually adding forms to your room, I'm going to click on the details tab. And I'm going to fill in as much of the information here that I have as possible, because this information on the details tab is what's going to be used to auto-populate all of those GAR forms. So it's going to save you time from having to upload or update those forms. Another thing that's super important is that we have to have our client's contact information here in the details tab in order to set up our pre-tagged roles to send these documents for signature. And we'll talk about that in more detail when we get to the envelopes. But just know those are the two reasons you want to come here and fill out the details tab. This detail page is broken up in like two different sections. The left, I guess 3/4 of the page is going to be all information about the specific property. So today we're going to be working on a listing. But if you're working, with a buyer or whatever, you would fill in the property address information here, any details about, the listing, offer, all that stuff. And then the right quarter column is going to be all about the individual parties involved in the transaction. So let me plug in my computer really quickly. So over here on the right-hand side, you can see I have seller 1. And then it pulled in, DocuSign pulled in my contacts information from command. So we have Tony Stark. Here's his cell phone number and email address. At a minimum, you need your client's name and email address. That's all you need in DocuSign to be able to send documents for signature. If you don't have an email address, there won't be a person or any way to send these for signature. So we have seller 1. Scrolling down, we have seller 2, which is Pepper Potts. And then here's Pepper's email address. Scrolling down, we have the listing agent information. So here is my information and the address for the office. Scrolling down, we have listing agent 2. So if I were to be co-listing this with another agent in the office, I would put his or her name and information here. And then scrolling down, we get to buyer 1. Now, I want to point this out because it is kind of, hefty ways down the page. If you're working with a buyer, you're going to have to scroll all the way down to double check and make sure that their name and contact information is here. So we have buyer 1, buyer 2, buyer agent 1, and buyer agent 2. So if you're working with a buyer, make sure that this information is filled out. One thing I want to point out is that today we're working on a listing, and that's because there's some forms that are going to be unique to working on a listing, but the processes are going to be the exact same across whether you're working with a listing or a buyer. But one thing I want to point out here is that since today I'm working with a listing, I do not want to fill in any of the contact information for the buyers and very minimal information about the buyer's agent. I do not recommend sending documents to the co-op agent or the co-op agent's clients through DocuSign. The way that the system is set up is that every single party has to sign the forms for it to be considered complete. So let's say in the event that I send over a document to the buyer's agent and then we end up negotiating back and forth, I'm never going to have a copy of that document with my client's signatures in my room because it's not considered complete, because the buyer's agent isn't going to sign it because we had to negotiate it. So just keep that in mind. So now that we kind of know the layout of the details page, let's go through and update the information and double check the information that was pulled in from command. So I'm going to click edit up here in the top right-hand corner. And we'll, excuse me, we'll start on the left-hand side with all the property information. I'm just going to fill in as much of the information that I have. If you have an MLS ID for this listing, you can go ahead and add that. But this isn't necessarily something you're going to have before you create your listing agreement. Origin of lead, company room status, I don't need that. Our address here, this pulled in directly from command, postal code, property type. We are going to do residential detached. Year built, let's do 2002. Special circumstances. Thankfully today there are no special circumstances. Listing date, I'm just going to select today's date. Listing expiration date, let's do September 30th. And we are listing this for $415,000. I'm just going to copy and paste that into all of those boxes. Legal description, if you have that, you can add any of that information here. Offer details, well, we're just getting ready to list this property, so we don't actually have any offer details just yet, or bid confirmation or contract closing or any of this. So we are good on the property details. Now, I don't need to add in the lot size or square footage or bathrooms, because that's not any of the fields needed for our listing agreement. So now let's go through and double check our client's contact information. So we have Tony Stark. Here's Tony's name, phone number, email address, looks good to go. Same thing here with Pepper Pot. So Pepper, and then here's her email address, which is just my personal email. And then scrolling down, we have my contact information as a listing agent. So my business number, email, company name. So the company name is going to default to Keller Williams Realty First Atlanta. No worries. I would make a recommendation of just going through and deleting Realty. It's not a big deal, and Lynn has confirmed that this is allowed on the GAR forms. And the only reason I recommend taking Realty out of the company name is because the spacing on the documents is not very big. So it'll end up covering some of the other text on the GAR forms. Not a huge deal, but just something to keep in mind. Our address, there we go. All of the information. And then we don't have a listing agent. And then I don't know who the buyers are because we don't have any buyers yet. So I'm going to click save in the bottom right-hand corner. Now we are good to go. Any questions on the details tab before we jump into adding our GAR forms and updating those? All right, so now that we've updated our details, let's start adding our documents so we can get all of our GAR forms together. So I'm going to click on the Documents tab. You'll see here that we have a Room Docs folder already set up within the Documents tab. That is going to be the default folder for all documents in this room. So anytime a new document is added to the room, or you have a completed signature, a completed signed document, or you upload a document from your computer, they will default into the Room Docs. That being said, we do have the ability to organize and add folders so that way we can set up this room in a way that's going to be most effective for us. I do want to point out that no one else is going to see your room. Your clients won't see your room. The MCA office won't see your room. Lynn and Alita won't look at it for compliance review. So you can set it up however organized or however disorganized you want. So if you're like me, you probably want to have a couple different folders just to make it easier to keep track of documents. So to add folders, I'm going to click Actions up here in the top right-hand corner, and then Add Folder. And I'm just going to give this folder a name. So I'm going to make this listing agreement. So I'm going to have all the documents for my listing agreement in a separate folder. Now I've just added my folder. It's good to go. You can add as many folders as you want. Now let's start adding our GAR forms. So up in the top right-hand corner, we're going to click on Add, and then we're going to select DocuSign Forms. And it's going to give us this pop-up window. And on the left-hand side, we have our groups and libraries. So libraries down here in the bottom left-hand side is going to be the libraries of forms that we have access to. So we have Georgia MLS. I don't know why we have the Greater Alabama MLS. Probably won't ever need it. And then we have our GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors. So you can click on this, and this is going to pull up all 180 GAR forms, which is a lot of GAR forms. And you can search here for the form that you may want. So you can just type in the name and it'll pull up the forms. However, that being said, so if let me look up seller's property disclosure. If I look up the seller's property disclosure, I have 4 different versions of that. So be mindful that when you are searching for documents, you're going to have a lot of documents that have very similar names. So be mindful that we have a condominium version, land lot, new construction, and then the seller's property disclosure for resale property. So there's all 180 forms. Now, because there are so many forms, I have gone through and created these groups of forms of the most commonly used forms, working with either a buyer in the buyer's packet or in the seller's packet. So you can come here and you can click on seller's packet. And this is going to show a list of probably about 80% of the forms that you are likely to need when working with a seller. This is not an exhaustive list. Again, this isn't all of them. So if there's in the event that you need another form, you would need to come down here to the GAR Association GAR forms. But in the seller's packet, we have our exclusive seller listing agreement. We have our community association, which we're going to use today. And we are going to have our seller's property disclosure statement. And I'm going to be sure to select the form F301 instead of F304. I don't want to use the condo one. It lets me know up here in the top left-hand corner that I've selected 3 forms. One thing I want to point out really quickly is that we have a buyer's brochures and seller's brochures groups as well. So in DocuSign, we have the GAR forms, and in DocuSign, we have brochures with additional information about various topics related to the real estate buying and selling process. It is recommended that you send these to your clients so they have this detailed information. It's not required. They don't have to sign them, but in the event that you do want to send them, here are all the list of the buyer's brochures, and here's a list of all these sellers' brochures that you can add to your room. So I'm going to go ahead and add my 3 documents here: my listing agreement, community association. Oh, the last form I want to add is I do want to add the purchase and sale agreement. So I do realize that when working with a seller, the likelihood of me or you being the originator of a purchase and sale agreement is probably going to be slim to none. But I do want to walk through it just so that way you get to see it, and we can walk through all the different steps so you can get comfortable with it, since it's going to be one of the most commonly used documents that you will use in your real estate career. So since it's not here in my seller's packet, I could look here in my buyer's packet, or I can come down here to the GAR Association of Realtors, and I'm going to type in purchase and sale. And so you can see I have a lot of different versions of a purchase and sale agreement here. So I can scroll through here and try to find the right one. Here it is, purchase and sale form F201. Now, as you get more comfortable with the GAR forms, you'll start to learn the form numbers. So this is form 201. So you can actually search using the form number. So when you're like, all right, I know my purchase and sale is F201, you can just search F201, and that will ensure that you find the correct purchase and sale agreement instead of, the 10 other commercial ones and land lot ones that you don't want to use. So I'm going to click add selected, and it's going to add the 4 documents into my room. So let's click add selected. And now it the room has reloaded, and now it's added these 4 documents into the default room docs folders. Now I've created my listing agreement, so I want to organize my documents to have my listing agreements in one folder and then my purchase and sale in another one. There are 2 ways in DocuSign that you can move forms within folders within a room. The first is you can click on the checkbox in the top left-hand corner of the document. And whenever you check that box, we'll get this toolbar up here at the top of the screen with different icons. And you can just roll your mouse over these icons and go to the icon that says move. So I'm going to click on move. And it's going to ask to select a destination. I'm going to say folder in current room. And then I'm going to select the folder within that room that I want to use. So I'm going to use the listing agreement folder and click move. So now I was able to move those 2 forms into my listing agreement folder. The other way that you can move a document from one folder to another is just roll your mouse over that document icon, click your mouse and hold your mouse down, and then drag the form into the desired folder. Pretty simple. Any questions on finding the GAR forms, searching for them within the pop-up window, and moving them within the folders before we jump in and start updating? Okay, well, now let's jump in and let's start updating some GAR forms. So let's start with our seller's listing agreement. So I'm just to open it up and start editing. I'm just going to click on it here. Give it a second to load. I will say sometimes DocuSign is a little slow. Be patient. It will load, I promise. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start at the top of the page, and we're going to work our way down, filling in the information. So you can see here for section 1, it's auto-populated much of the information from the details tab, and that is really beneficial. It saves us some time. Tax parcel ID, I didn't have that when I filled in the details tab, so I'm just going to add that in there. And I would get this from the tax records. Next section is our legal description, and we have a couple different options here. Option number 1 is to be attached as an exhibit here too. I would recommend when you are working with a seller to reach out to our Alliance closing attorneys. So Campbell and Brannon, McManamy, and McMichael and Gray. And you can ask them for the legal description for a property that you're getting ready to list, and they'll usually send it over. If you go to kwfa.com and then, kwfa.info, kwfa.info, and then click on our Alliance partners, all the email addresses for each one of our closing attorney partners are there, and you can email them, and usually they get back to you within 24 hours. So this would be the preferred way to have your legal description as an attached exhibit here too. The other option is to do same as described in deed book and page, and you can get this information from the tax records. So either from the county tax assessor or from realist within FMLS. So I'm going to attach as an exhibit here too. And then we're just going to scroll down and we're going to fill in the information. So we can see here we have list price at populated 415. We're going to have a commencement date. So today is 8/19. So we're going to start commencement of our listing agreement on this date. And then the end of our agreement. And let's do 10/29/22. So we'll do 2 months. One thing I do want to point out with our training today is the training today is to go through how to use these forms and how to send and work DocuSign. This is not a class on how to properly fill in the correct information for these forms. Please lean on Lynn and Alita and our closing attorney partners for trainings on the correct information to put in these forms. I just want to clarify that just so there's no confusion, because in the past people have been like, well, Nick didn't do that. And it's like, well, I'm just doing things for training. So I used abbreviations and, shorthand for things. So for marketing, we're going to use FMLS, Georgia MLS, and KWLS. And then our marketing commencement date. So we shall get this listed with an FMLS. So we'll do 8/20. 2022, and we won't wait more than 5 days after that to get this listed in FMLS. So continuing to scroll down, we have our commission section here. So I have negotiated 6% as my commission, and I agree to pay 3% to the co-op agent. Commission adjustment, don't have anything here. Separate commission on a lease, don't have anything there. Protected period, I negotiated 90 days. The following types of agency relationships not offered by the brokers. We do not offer sub agency, dual agency, or sub agency. And then if the broker offers dual agency, which we don't, so we can click does not consent. Scrolling down, any special circumstances, we do not have any today, so that's pretty easy. And the negotiation, the seller does authorize the broker to assist in negotiating the terms of the contract and forms. Scrolling down, keep scrolling. Now we get to the meat of the GAR forms, which is just an explanation of everything that we just filled in. So we keep scrolling, scrolling. All right, so now we have our brochures. So remember, I pointed out the buyer's brochures and the seller's brochure sections on the when adding documents. So if you have added any of those that you want to send, you can just click these little check boxes to let them know, hey, these are the forms that are brochures that I've added. So you can read through them at your leisure. Scrolling down, we have our exhibits and addenda. So we have our legal description exhibit. So this is going to be exhibit A. And then we don't have lead-based paint because this house was built in 2002. So we don't have any lead-based paint in it. Special stipulations. If you have any special stipulations, you can go ahead and type these here. You can put in whatever you want. I know a lot of people, especially Eric Baker yesterday, he was talking on his Win with Sellers class, that they will go ahead and negotiate upfront any price reductions with the client. Just in that way, there's not any confusion or any hesitation when you're trying to get your home sold. So let's say you can say all parties acknowledge and agree to reduce the list price of the home by $10,000 if no offers are received and or not negotiating an offer due by the 14th day the home is listed for sale. Every following 7 days, seller agrees to a $10,000 list price reduction until the home is under contract. Again, this isn't like the correct verbiage. I'm just kind of putting, something in there. So that's a stipulation that you can use. You can just type in however many steps you can or you want. Throughout your real estate career, you'll start to learn which stipulations you want to include. Generally, for a listing agreement, you don't need too many. Just put whatever you agree to here. You can just type those in. If for whatever reason you have so many stipulations on your listing agreement that you need additional space, you can click here to add the additional stipulations. And then this will let the seller know, hey, I need to check out this form that's also attached for more stipulations. And you'll add the F246 to your room. Scrolling down, we now have our acceptance page. So this is where we have our clients' names and email addresses. So everything looks good to go there. And now I'm just going to double check and fill in the information that's missing for myself. So MLS office code, KWFA01, brokerage 33313. and Realtor membership. I'm a member of the Atlanta board. Now, all of this information here is going to remain the same. There is a way within DocuSign that you can create a form template that's kind of more of a DocuSign 2.0 feature. And I do have a training on it. It's part of the Take Command series. But if you have any questions about it, let me know. We can talk through it just in that way to kind of save you some time from having to fill in those fields that do not auto-populate. Continuing to scroll down, just want to double check, make sure everything's good to go. Now that we filled everything in, we are going to click the Save and Close button. So we have a Save and Close button up here in the top right-hand corner and down here at the bottom of the form. You must click Save and Close in order for the system to save the information that we just filled out on our listing agreement. So we'll give that a second to save. And now we have saved our listing agreement. Any questions on the listing agreement before we jump into any of the other forms? We're going to kind of repeat the same process a couple more times. All right. So now that we filled out our listing agreement, let's go through the seller's property disclosure. So I'm going to click on that to open it up. Just going to go through the same steps and process that we just did. We're going to start at the top and we'll work our way down. So seller's exhibit letter, we don't have an exhibit yet. This isn't actually part of a contract, so we can leave this blank. Going through, we don't have an offer date yet because this is still not part of an offer, but it did pre-populate with the property address, which is great. Now scrolling down, we get to the seller disclosure information. Now before, when we were in the listing agreement, we had those text boxes and little check boxes that we can go through and fill in. You'll notice here that we don't have any of those, and that is correct. This form is working properly. As the agent, we do not have permission to fill in any of the information on any disclosures for a property we are listing. It is the seller's responsibility to fill in all of this information. So that is why myself, as the agent, do not have any fields here to fill in. When I send this document to my seller or my sellers, they will be able to fill in all of the fields. So I'm just going to give this a quick scroll through just to make sure that there aren't any fields that I'm missing. And there are not. And then we have our client's names for signature. Good to go. Now I'm going to click Save and Close. So seller's property disclosure, pretty simple. There isn't anything for me to do. Now I'm going to open up the community association disclosure. All right. And again, start at the top, work our way down. We don't have an exhibit yet, our exhibit letter, because we're not a part of a contract. We don't have an offer date yet. Here's our pre-populated address. And now scrolling through again for the community association disclosure, I don't have the ability to fill in any of this information because all of this must come from the seller. So I'm just double checking to make sure there aren't any boxes or fields that I am missing. So far, everything looks good to go. All right, our client's names. So I'm going to click Save and Close. So pretty simple with the disclosures. And then I will show you when we go into the envelope to send a signature, how everything populates for your client to go in and sign. Now that we filled in our listing agreement, let's go through the process of updating the purchase and sale. And I do understand this is not the conventional process, but knowing that, especially as newer agents, that we're going to be spending more time working with buyers, likely that we're going to be working in the purchase and sale agreement often. So I want to familiarize you with the document. So I'm going to click the purchase and sale to open it up. All right. And just like we did before with the previous forms, we'll just start at the top and we'll work our way down, filling in all of the information. So we'll start here at the offer date. So we're going to write an offer. We can just do today's date. So select that date. Then we have our property address, our MLS number, and then our tax parcel ID, which this is, I would just get from the tax records. Scrolling down, our legal description. So I'm just going to attach it as an exhibit here too, since I was able to get that from one of our alliance closing attorneys. Purchase price. So let's say this buyer is willing to pay $410,000. We had listed at $415. They're willing to pay $410. Closing costs. They want $3,500 in closing costs. Closing date here. This is populated from our expected closing date. But we can say they want to close on 9/21/22, and they want possession at closing. Our closing law firm, I'm just going to select Campbell and Brannon, and phone number. I'm just going to use our office number here for now because I do not know what that is. Holder of earnest money is Keller Williams First Atlanta. And the earnest money is going to be paid by check. And it is going to be, we're going to do $5,000 within 3 days of binding. Now you notice when you roll your mouse over a lot of these fields, the little pop-up windows. So just kind of move your mouse around and it will go away. All right, for inspection and due diligence, we are requesting 7 days of due diligence. Lead-based paint. This was not built prior to 1978, so we're good to go. I am working with this seller as a client, and then the buying brokerage, we'll do Harry Norman today. And they are working with their buyer as a client. Material relationship, not that I know of, so I can just put NA. And then time limit of offer, let's do 12 p.m. on 8/20/2022. So 24 hours. Oh, there we go. 12 p.m. There we go. All right, so we'll keep scrolling down. Now we get to the explanation of everything that we just filled in. Lots of scrolling. All right. So now we get to our exhibits and addenda. For whatever reason, I don't know why the all cash sale exhibit is checked. Just uncheck it. So we know that we're going to include our community association disclosure. We're going to include our seller's property disclosure. And we also have our legal description here. So I have a specific order that I like to put my exhibits in. So I like to do my seller's property exhibit as A, community association as B, and then my legal description here as C. And if you had your financing exhibit or the lead-based paint exhibit or anything else, you would check that, include that here as well. And I'm going to remove why that says A. I don't know why. And now we have our special stipulations, which thankfully the Georgia Association of Realtors gave us a lot more space. So you can type in your stipulation here, add in more steps, lots of steps, and you can just add as many as you want, or you can fit here. Again, if you need additional pages for stipulations, you could check here the additional stipulation page and add form F246 and add that here. So our last page here is our signature page, and you can see it adds our clients' names and email addresses. And then here's all of my information. So I'm just going to fill in the missing info. MLS office code KWFA01. So one thing I want to point out really quickly on this page is that you can see that it pre-populates with my client's name and email address on the seller's property disclosure. So I personally don't like to share my client's contact information with a co-op agent. I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, it's going to be A-okay. And that co-op agent is going to be very respectful of the established relationship that I have with my client. However, I don't want to chance it. I don't want the co-op agent to feel that he or she can reach out to my clients, maybe try to negotiate around me or negotiate me out. So ideally, or initially what I would think is, oh, I'm just going to delete my client's contact information here on this purchase and sale agreement. No, do not delete your client's email address here. Anytime that you change or delete a pre-filled field on any of the GAR forms, it's going to delete or change that field of information from the details tab. And then thus subsequently change all of the other GAR forms as well. So for here, if I were to delete my client's contact information, it would delete my client's contact information off the details page. So then when I go to the envelope to send these for signature, there would not be a contact email address and I would not be able to send them. So I will show you in the envelope in just a moment how we can protect our client's contact information and we can hide that from the co-op agent. And then last thing here, if you are getting ready to send this to a co-op agent, it may behoove you to go ahead and fill in all this information. That way, it's just going to be one less thing for that co-op agent to have to fill in and may help your offer stand out. But again, do not recommend sending any forms for signature to co-op agents through DocuSign. So scroll all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to click Save and Close. Perfect. So now we have all of our GAR forms ready to go. Any questions on adding GAR forms, updating the information before we jump into sending them for signature? All right. Perfect. Okay. So I actually need to take just like a really quick, super fast restroom break. So I am going to take 3 seconds and I will be back ASAP when we can finish up. Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you giving me a moment to use the restroom. Any questions on anything before we jump back in and finish up our training for today? All right. So our next step is, now that we've gone through and we've created our or added our documents, filled everything in, we need to send them for signature. And the way that we send documents for signature in DocuSign is through an envelope. The way that Michael New explained envelopes to me, and I really like this analogy, so I like to share it, is he said, think of envelopes in DocuSign like a manila envelope in real life. And you had gone through and you'd printed out physical copies of all the purchase and sale agreements and listing agreements and filled them all in with pen and you have them and you organize them and you stack them in a little, together, and then you put them in that manila envelope on the corner of your desk to safely and securely hold on to them until you see your clients. Then you see your clients and you hand them this envelope and you say, please review and sign these documents. An envelope in DocuSign is the same thing. It is a vehicle to organize and send documents for signature. So there are two ways that we can create envelopes in DocuSign. The first way is here within the Documents tab. I can check the document icons for the documents that I want to send for signature. As I mentioned previously, whenever you select a document, this toolbar will appear up here, and you can roll your mouse over to where you see the pen, and it will give you the Create Envelope option. So this would create an envelope with these three forms already added into it. So that's option number one. Option number two is to come up here to the Envelopes tab. And then in the top right-hand corner, we will select New. And then this is be the same exact place that if we had clicked Create Envelope in the Documents tab, it will take us here. So like with everything, we'll start at the top and we'll work our way down, filling in the fields. So envelope name, it's going to default to Please DocuSign, but please go through and actually give this a name, something that you can remember, because you will likely have to go back and double check some envelopes throughout a transaction. And throughout a transaction, you're going to be sending probably 10, 20, 30, 40, to numerous lots of envelopes. So make sure you name it something you can remember. So we're going to do this 1, 2, 3, 4 Main Street, and we'll do exclusive seller listing agreement and purchase and sale. Again, this envelope name is for internal purposes, but again, keep it something that is client friendly just in case they ever see it you open up your computer or whatnot. Our next step is to add documents to the envelope. So here we have three different options: Room Docs, Use a Template, and more. Room Docs is going to show us all the documents that we have currently loaded in our room where we just came from. Templates. So if you have created, well, actually, probably let me erase that because it's been updated. There have been some templates that the MCA office has created for us to use to simplify a few things. So we'll add a template there. And then more is if you need to upload a document directly from your computer or from Google Drive or Dropbox or something. So I'm going to click on Room Docs. And this is going to show me all of the documents that I have in my room. So this is all 4 documents, but if I have a ton of documents in there, I'm going to click on my list agreement folder, and it's going to show me all 3 of those forms. So I can go back to my all folders, and I can click on Room Docs, and I can select my purchase and sale. And it lets me know up here that I have 4 documents selected. So select whichever documents that you want to send for signature and click Add Selected. And it's going to load those into our envelope. And now you'll notice that it's just going to load them in alphabetical order. Still taking their time.
And what did you click to add those again? I missed that.
Oh, so click Room Docs and then select the documents that you want to add and then Add Selected.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. So I mentioned we're going to add a template. So in addition to actually sending these GAR forms, we need to include our affiliated marketing disclosure and our wire fraud prevention disclosure. Those have been uploaded as a template from the MCA office. So to do that, I'm going to click on Use a Template. And then I'm going to select the Shared with Me folder over here on the left-hand side. And this is going to load all of the templates that the MCA office has shared with me as an agent. For whatever reason, this always takes a fair amount of time to load. So just be patient. I promise it will load. There we go. Perfect. All right. So scrolling down, you'll see we have a buyer-affiliated marketing disclosure and buyer-wire fraud disclosure. And then scrolling down some more, we have a seller-affiliated marketing and a seller-wire fraud disclosures. They're the exact same disclosures and information. The only difference is the signing permissions. So you want to make sure that you add the version of these templates based on which side of the transaction you are representing. So today we're working with sellers, so I'm going to select seller versions and then click add selected. I'm just going to add those templates to my envelope. All right, so now we have all 6 documents that we want to send for signature, but they're in just kind of like a random order. And I want to put them in a very specific order. So I want my clients to sign the listing agreement, then the seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, then the other disclosures before signing the purchase and sale. In order to reorder the documents, you have to do it now when you are initially creating your envelope, or else you will not be able to reorder them. So to reorder them, pretty simple, just roll your mouse over the document icon name, hold your mouse down and drag it into the desired position. So I want to add my seller's property disclosure. I want that to be second. Then we have our community association disclosure. Then I want my affiliated marketing disclosure. And then I want my wire fraud prevention disclosure. I want that to be fifth. And now my purchase and sale. So this is the order that these documents are going to appear when our client goes to sign. So just note that you need to reorder them here when you initially create the envelope. Scrolling down, our next step is to add recipients to the envelope. This is a very important piece of your entire DocuSign experience. I will say about 80% of the issues that I work with agents on is from this specific moment in DocuSign. So in order to add recipients, I'm going to click on the add recipient drop-down menu. And I have 3 options: pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email address. Whenever you see the option for pre-tagged roles, 100% of the time, select pre-tagged roles. Pre-tagged roles is what's going to automatically assign every single signature field, initial field, and text field to your clients to sign and fill in. The DocuSign team has gone through and mapped every single field on all 180 GAR forms to these pre-tagged roles. Most agents in a rush and you're scrambling to try to get an offer together, and so I understand. They're like, oh, room participants, boom. If you select room participants, you will have to manually add every single initial field, text field, signature field, everything. And that defeats the whole purpose and benefit of using DocuSign. So please always use pre-tagged roles. The only time that you would really need to use room participants is if you were uploading a PDF from a co-op agent that you know that you're going to have to manually add the signature fields to anyway. But otherwise, always select pre-tagged roles. So I know I've said pre-tagged roles 100 times. I just want to really drive that home. So I'm going to click on pre-tagged roles. It's going to give me this pop-up window with all the roles that are included in the documents that I have on with all the GAR forms. I don't have to fill them all in here, but I'm going to select seller 1, seller 2, and listing agent because those are the roles that we're working with. And then for seller 1, I'm going to come over here to this drop-down menu and I'm going to assign Tony Stark. Now, since today we have the disclosures to fill in, it's important who you decide to be seller 1 versus seller 2. So it's a conversation that you would want to have with your clients to say, hey, who wants to be the one responsible for filling in all of the information on the seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure? Because it is a fair amount of information and work to do. So just make sure that you have sign off from them. So as Tony said, sure, he'll fill it in. Then we'll have seller 2. We'll set this as Pepper Potts. And then listing agent, I'm going to select myself. Now you may see yourself in here multiple times. So I'm up here and then as well as down here. It doesn't matter. It's going to go to the same person. It's going to go to you. So I'm going to select myself. So now I have my pre-tagged roles assigned. So the system knows that anytime you see a field assigned to seller 1, allow Tony to sign for that field. Same thing for Pepper and myself. So I'm going to click add selected. All right. So now we have added all of our recipients to the envelope. So there's a fair amount of information we need to go through here for the recipients before we move on. To the left of each one of the recipients' names is a text box with the number 1 in it. These text boxes represent the signing order for these documents. The system is going to default to 1, which is going to allow every single recipient to sign at the exact same time. However, I would recommend putting them in a specific signing order, especially for today. We know that Tony's going to be filling in the disclosures. So I want Tony to be able to fill in the disclosures, and then I want Pepper to be able to review the information that he put there just to double check and make sure that it's correct. Then I want to be able to sign, and I can make our listing agreement binding. So to update the order, it's super simple. Just click your mouse into that text box and update the order that you want, and the system will automatically reorder them. And I'm going to make myself third. And now, once Tony signs, then Pepper will be able to sign, and then myself. Now, if Pepper were to call you, like, Nick, hey, I haven't gotten the listing agreement to sign yet. I thought I was supposed to get that this afternoon. What's going on? I can say, no worries, Pepper. It looks like Tony's still working on the forms. Once Tony has completed signing, then you will receive an email notification allowing you to sign. And then she'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So just know if it has not gone down the workflow, it's because someone is holding it up. Here we have our clients' names and email addresses that we have had included on the details tab. To the right here, we have a drop-down menu. It's going to default to needs to sign, but we have a couple different permissions. So needs to sign means that there's going to be a field on here that they need to sign. Needs to view means that they need to actually go through and visually click through all the different pages of these documents and view them. If you assign this to needs to view, they actually do have to physically view these documents and click complete in order for their step to be completed. So if for whatever reason, you include maybe a spouse on a document that doesn't actually have to sign anything, or maybe a lender or a parent or somebody, just to make sure that they know that they actually have to physically do it to view. You can also include receives a copy. So this is it's going to send them an email. They don't have to do anything if they don't want to. This might be beneficial to send to a lender or include them, or a closing attorney, or maybe, again, a non-signer, a non-signing spouse or a relative. That way they can just, stay in the loop. I do recommend that if you do include a lender or the closing attorney on here, that you give them a heads up. Hey, we are about to go binding on this document, and I just went ahead and added you to the DocuSign room, so you will get that. You'll get an email from DocuSign with all that information. Let's give them a heads up. And then specify recipient and witness for signer. You probably won't ever need to use this, so don't worry about it. The next, we have a drop-down menu that says more, and this gives us two options. The first is an access authentication. So if you're working with a client that is a little uncomfortable with e-signing, they have a fear that someone's going to break into their email and then start signing all these documents and buy a house on their behalf that your clients aren't aware of, we can add an access authentication code. So I'm just going to click here and add access authentication, and then I can just type in any numbers or letters code that I would want to use. And I would say, hey, Tony, I know that you're concerned about e-signing. Well, I've added a special passcode that you have to type in 12345 or ABCD 123, whatever it is, before DocuSign will allow you to start signing. So it's just an extra level of security. I don't actually want to use that today, so I'm going to click discard. And then our last option here is to add a private message. So I'm going to write a message specifically that only Tony will see. Since Tony is going to be the one filling in the disclosures, I'm going to say, please be sure to fill in all the fields of info for the seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure. Thank you, Nick. Now, only Tony's going to see this, and that's going to be his quick reminder. Any questions on adding recipients, selecting pre-tagged roles, putting them in a specific signing order, or changing their permissions?
So is that usually how the order goes? It's like one person that fills it in and then one person that reviews?
Yes, and it's your personal preference. So this is how I like to do it. Just in that way, Pepper would have time to review, because sometimes whoever actually fills it in makes a mistake or something incorrect, and they will be held responsible to that information at closing. So if seller one, if Tony in this instance puts in at like, oh, they forget to put in like, oh, it's a $500 initiation fee on the community association disclosure, sellers are responsible for that $500. So I like to have it so that way seller two can review it, but it's really your personal preference.
Okay.
All right. So scrolling down, we've added our recipients. Our next step is to just write a quick message to all recipients. The email subject is going to be default to please DocuSign. I recommend you leave that in there just so that they know that there is an action that they need to take. And then I'm going to type in the property address and the what forms are included. So exclusive sale listing agreement and purchase and sale. And I'll also write a quick message. Hi, Tony and Pepper. Please review and sign the GAR forms at your earliest convenience. Thank you, Nick. All right. So now we've gone through, we've created our envelope, we've given it a name, we've added our documents, put them in specific order. We have added our recipients, our pre-tagged roles, put those in a specific order, as well as written a quick little message. Now, our next step is to click next. And this is going to take us to the envelope editor. This is where we're going to see all the signature fields. We can double check, make sure everything is assigned properly, and we can add any missing signature fields or anything that we want here. So there's a lot of information on this page. So let's kind of walk through the layout before we actually go through and double check everything. So up here in the top left-hand corner is a little back arrow. In the event that you realize, oops, I made a mistake or I need to add something, or you need to exit out of here, you can click the go back button. DocuSign saves your changes about like every 2 or 3 seconds. So it'll probably have saved any changes or additions that you make. I do want to point out though, that if you go back into the documents tab and you make any changes to the document there, it will remove any of those changes that you had made here in the envelope editor to any of the signature fields or text fields that you may have added. Just want to point that out. Below that, we have a drop-down menu. We can see we have Tony Stark's name with a yellow circle to the left of that. If I click on this drop-down menu, it has all of the recipients' names with a different color next to their name. Now, if you notice down here, we have all of these fields, signature fields, and they're all highlighted yellow. That lets me know that anytime that I see a field that has this yellow color, that it's assigned to Tony. Same thing if I click on Pepper. I know every blue field is going to be assigned to Pepper, and same thing with purple. Everything purple is going to be assigned to me. The colors themselves don't mean anything. So like seller one isn't always going to be yellow versus, it doesn't matter. You just know that anytime that you see a color associated with the name, that color consistently across this envelope will be assigned to that person. Here we have all the different fields that we could add. So we have signature fields, initial. It's really easy to add any of these fields to our forms. In the middle here, we have a preview of the forms. So you can just scroll through here. It's going to show me all the information. You can just, scroll through. There's a lot of fields, a lot of pages. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have a thumbnail of each one of the forms. So I click here in exclusive seller listing agreement, and I can scroll through and see all the different pages. And I can just click into that page and it'll take me right there. And if I scroll through, let's keep scrolling, you'll see here on this last page, it has these little stickies letting me know, hey, there is a assigned field to Tony, Pepper, and myself on this last page. So if I click on here, it'll take me and it shows me all the signature fields, date sign fields from the clients and myself. Going down to the seller's property disclosure, you'll see here, there's a yellow tab on each one of these pages, which lets me know that Tony has assigned fields on this page. All right, so now that we have gone through everything, let's go through all of the pages here. Just really quickly, let's scroll through and make sure that all the signature fields and everything are assigned properly. So there aren't any signature fields up here on these first couple pages. So I'm just going to scroll down And as you start getting more comfortable with the GAR forms, you'll know exactly where to look, and you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. So you can just kind of breeze through it. So here we have our signature fields, date signed, we're good to go. I'm okay with my client's email addresses here because this is an internal document only, so we're good. I have my signature field, date signed. That's kind of off, so I'm going to fix that. It's weird. And now here at the bottom, I have the ability to make this binding. So remember, I'm the last person to sign it. So Tony and Pepper will have already signed. So I can make this binding when I sign, and it's super easy to do that. So I'm going to select myself from the drop-down menu, and then I'm going to add a text field right here. And I'm going to just quickly position that to fit. And you'll notice that this text field is filled in purple. Whenever a field is filled in with a color, that lets you know that it is a required field. Required means that the system is going to stop and make sure that I fill in a piece of information before it allows me to go on to the next field. So this is going to be required. Another cool feature about DocuSign is that I can actually right mouse click this, copy, and paste. And that way I don't have to add another text field and then reformat it. It just makes it a little bit more easy. So now it's going to require me to fill in the time here and the date. And then I can add in the date signed field right here, and then the system will automatically add the date there. So this way, once I sign, this document's going to be binding and everyone's going to have copies of it. So we are good to go here. Scrolling down, we get to the seller's property disclosure, and you can see where before we didn't have any text fields or checkboxes. Now we have all these checkboxes outlined in yellow. So I know that they are assigned to Tony. Now, I just mentioned a minute ago that anytime that a text box is filled in with that color, it's required. And if a text box is only outlined, it lets me know that it is not required at all. So that means that the system will jump right over all these not required fields and go to the required ones. And so it'll be really easy for Tony to be like, hey, Nick, I went to go sign the sales or fill in the information on the property disclosure, but there wasn't anywhere for me to sign in. It must be broken. Well, it's not broken. It's just that it wasn't required. So Tony didn't know to stop and fill it in. Well, the fun little workaround here is that for this first field, what year was the main dwelling constructed? If you click on that field, and then you can come over here and check required. Now it's filled in yellow. And that is going to ensure that the system stops and says, hey, Tony, you have to fill in the year in this field before you can do anything else. And it's going to be much easier for Tony to then scroll through all the rest of these fields. So that is something really helpful to do. I would only recommend doing it for this first text box on the seller's property disclosure, because we don't know which of the text boxes or check boxes he's going to check when he's actually going through here. So I just want to make sure it's actually one that he will be filling in. So I'm just going to scroll through here, just again, make sure everything is good to go. Scrolling, keep scrolling. We have our signatures, date signed, everything's good to go. Perfect. Our next form is our community association disclosure. We have all the check boxes. And again, the same thing as these text fields are not required. So I want to click on the name of association, and I'm going to check required. Now that's filled in yellow. So I know that the system is going to stop Tony and make him fill in this information. But again, I only want to do it for this first one. So it'll be much easier for him to go through and fill it in. We'll just go through and scroll, double check, make sure that everything's good to go. Here are our signatures. Awesome. Next, we have our affiliated marketing disclosure. Signatures, date signed, perfect. All right, our wire fraud prevention, good to go. Now we get to our purchase and sale agreement. So again, just scroll through here, double check, make sure nothing's missing. We have our initial fields. Scroll through all that explanation. All right. Double check our exhibits. Perfect. Our stipulations. Now we get to the signature page. Just double check it. Everything looks good to go. Now, remember earlier I mentioned I'd show you how to block your client's email address from appearing on this document when we send it to the co-op agent. Super easy to do. All I'm going to do is add a quick little black box over my client's email address. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to the little pencil icon, pre-fill tools. And it doesn't matter who you have as a dropdown for this, because this doesn't actually require anyone to sign anything. I'm going to select line. And then I'm just going to come up here and draw a line right over my client's email address, just like that. Now, obviously, you can still read that, but I do have the ability to edit this line over here. So I'm going to select color. I'm going to pick my color. I'm just going to select black and done. And then thickness, I'm just going to change this all the way to a 10. So now it's super thick. And I'm just going to position this to fully cover my client's email address. And just like that, it is super easy to hide my client's email address. And just like before, you can copy paste this. So I'm just going to do a quick command copy, command paste, and then drag this over my seller 2's email address. And now my client's contact information is not visible to the co-op agent. And we are good to go. Any questions so far on the envelope editor, adding text fields, signature fields, making a text field become required or not? All right. If you want to give this a quick double check or triple check before you send, you can click preview up here in the top right-hand corner. And then this is going to take you to a quick preview screen, and you can view the documents as your client. So I can select, I want to view this as Tony. And this is going to give me a quick preview of what it's going to be like for Tony to sign. Now, one thing I want to point out is up here, you can use it as a desktop view, a tablet view, and then we also have the ability to do a phone view. So just look how small this is. So if you're working with clients and they're like, hey, Nick, we are so excited about this house. We really want to buy it, but we have this dinner reservation that we've made for like 6 months. It's really important. We can't cancel it. Tony, Pepper, please go ahead, go to dinner, have fun, but just be on the lookout for a text message from me. I'm going to send you a text message when the GAR forms are in your inbox to sign, and then you can just quickly sign from your phone. Now, they're probably not going to be able to read it, but they can sign it. And that's all that matters. So as long as you have that level of trust and they know that you're working in their best interest, they can trust that all the things that you guys have talked about are in this form. If you want to exit out of the preview mode, just click the X in the top right-hand corner. And now we are ready to send. So I'm going to click send. If you want to, you can send later. So if you're working at midnight and you're like, oh, I want to send this at 7 in the morning, you can click send later. And you do have the ability to select a date and time. But I'm just going to go ahead and click send. And this is going to send it to Tony. Perfect. So let me know it's waiting for others. I'm going to open up another tab here, and I'm going to open up my email. So this is my work email. Let me come over here. I want to add, here's my kwfa.tech. Perfect. So here is my please DocuSign, 1234 Main Street. Scroll down. Here's my quick message. Hi, Tony. Please be sure to fill in all the fields. That's only to Tony. And then my message to everybody. Tony's going to click on review documents. Tony's going to click on agree to use electronic signatures, continue, start, sign. It's going to ask him to confirm his signature. Just go ahead and use the one provided by DocuSign, adopt and sign. Now remember, it just jumped to this next field. So when was this main dwelling constructed? Here on the seller's property disclosure, go type in 2002. And then I am just going to go through here and I'm just going to check some of these boxes. I'm just not going to put in any specific order. I just wanted so that way we can see what it looks like when Pepper goes to sign, so that way she can double check. All right. So I'm done here. I'm just going to scroll down to go to the signature page. And Tony is going to sign. Same thing with the seller or the community association disclosure. This is the name of HOA. This is the mandatory contact person, contact name, management company, and you just go through and fill out. This is going to be $1,000 for HOA, and it's quarterly. Just go through, fill this in. Boom. And this is really important because for the community association disclosure, your clients are responsible for any fees that they fail to disclose to the buyers. No litigation. So sign, initial, sign. Now, Tony's finished. We get a finish button up here in the top right-hand corner. If we scroll all the way down, there's a finish button. Your clients have to click on the finish button. Give it a second to save. So I'm going to ask them if they want to create a DocuSign account. They can click no thanks. Then they're going to get a you've finished signing. It's very important that they get the you finished signing because that is the system's way of saying, hey, Tony, you are good to go. We can now send this document on to Pepper for her to review and sign. So I'm going to close this tab. And then I'm going to scroll up here. Let me add my personal email address. So now we should have an email, perfect, from myself. Please DocuSign. Here's my message to Tony and Pepper. Now notice she doesn't have that private message. Pepper's going to click on review documents. And it's going to be the same process. Agree to use electronic records, continue, start, sign, adopt and sign. Now it jumped all the way to the bottom of the seller's property disclosure, but since we're great agents, we're going to say, hey, Pepper, please be sure to scroll up to review the information that Tony put in here. And so you can see all the X's and that Tony filled in and be like, oh, okay, perfect. All this information is good to go. All right, so then Pepper is going to sign. Same thing with the community association disclosure. Excuse me, scroll up, just review all this. Here's everything that Tony added. Pepper's going to sign, initial, sign. Now Pepper has gotten the finish button, so Pepper's going to click finish. Again, it's going to ask her to create an account, say no, thank you. And it's going to say you finished signing. So now Tony and Pepper are good. So now I'm going to go back to my email. And now I've gotten an email that says, please DocuSign. I can click on review documents. Continue, start. I'm going to sign. Now, remember, we're going to make this binding. So it's going to ask me for to fill in this field. So we're going to make this 12 p.m. Oh, excuse me, p.m. Fill in. That's going to take me to, I don't have to sign the seller's property disclosure or community association. So I'm just going to click sign here for the purchase and sale. And now I'm finished. So I'm going to click finish. I don't want to log in, so I'm going to click no thanks. And now I've received the you've finished signing. So now we're all good with signing. Now, one of the really cool things that I like about DocuSign is that once everyone has signed, DocuSign will send out an email with a completed signed versions of all the documents that were just sent out. This is beneficial because GREC requires that after every signature or every time someone signs a document, they should have a copy for their records. Well, this just saves you that extra step of having to send another email because here it is. They have copies of all these signed documents for their records. So that is super helpful. Makes it easy for them to keep track of and download if they need them. So now that we have our signed documents, let's go back into DocuSign. And I know we're getting close to time, so I'm going to try to wrap this up as quickly as possible. I'm going to be respectful of your time this morning. So I'm just going to click refresh. in the envelope page, and it's going to let me know that this has been completed at 11:27. Perfect. Now, to get the signed versions of these documents, I'm going to go back into the Documents tab, and I'm going to scroll down into the Room Docs folder. And now you'll see we have all these document icons with a green checkbox that say signed. Like I said before, anytime a document is signed and completed, it's going to default into the Room Docs folder. Now, I want to put these documents in the correct folder. So all my listing agreement documents, I'm going to take these and I'm going to check them. And then I'm going to click on Move to move them into my listing agreement folder and move. Perfect. So now they are all added here. The default system for our default setting for DocuSign is that all these documents are going to be placed in alphabetical order. So if you click up here where it says name A through Z, you can change that. I personally prefer to do the added newest first. And that just makes it easier for me to keep track of, anytime I have a new version of it, I know the one that's going to be up here in the top left-hand corner is going to be the most recent. Personal preference. And then down here in the Room Docs folder, this certification document is just a document that has everyone's signature on it. You likely won't need it, so you can archive it if you want. So you can just click archive. Perfect. So I'm going to close that. So now we have all of our signed documents in DocuSign. Now we need to upload them into Command. So I'm going to go back into Command. I'm going to click refresh just because we've made our folders in DocuSign and just want to make sure everything's updated. So here in my listed folder, I'm going to select attach DocuSign, attach forms from. Gives me the option of DocuSign on my computer. So I want to select DocuSign. And then it's going to ask me for the working folder. So this is the listing document. So I'm going to select listing agreement. Now I'm just going to go through all these drop-down menus and add the form that is required. So for our listing agreement here, I'm going to select the drop-down menu. And this is going to show me all the versions of the signed forms in that folder. So I'm going to click on the exclusive seller listing agreement, signed PDF. And it automatically adds it. I can click on this link here and it's going to show me a quick preview. So this is one of the main benefits is that I can just upload documents directly from DocuSign into Command. And I'm going to do this for all the rest of the forms that I have. So here's my community association. Here's my seller's property disclosure. Now you'll notice that as you're adding forms, this list here will get shorter and shorter because it only allows you to add the form one time to an opportunity. So this is seller's property disclosure, click on that. And then Rawls Group affiliated marketing, select that. And then our wire fraud disclosure, select that. So now we have all these forms updated. I also have my purchase and sale agreement. So I can come here to the under contract folder and I can do the same thing, attach files from DocuSign, and we'll just do Room Docs. And then I will select my purchase and sale agreement. And that's going to upload. Now, once you've gone through and you've uploaded your documents, this Submit to MC button will appear. And it's going to be highlighted green. You would want to click on the Submit to MC, and that is going to send Lynn and Alita a notification saying, hey, Nick has a new listing at 1234 Main Street. Please go through and review all the GAR forms. They will review them, and they'll let us know of the status over here. They've been updated, or if they've been approved, or if they've been rejected. If they've been rejected, there will also be a quick note here that says, hey, this is missing signature on page 4. The checkbox on page 7 needs to be added or whatever. And that is how you will know. You will get a notification up here at the bell in Command, and you'll get a notification on your phone if you have the Command mobile app saying, hey, a new compliance event has happened, check your Command. That is our training for this morning. We just went through a lot, and I appreciate you being patient, extra 2 minutes. We've started in our opportunity. We've selected the type of document set list that we need. We created our room, confirmed our NERDS ID, updated the details, added the GAR forms, filled them in, created our envelope and sent them for signature, and now have uploaded them into Command. What questions do you have? Is there anything I can clarify for you? Anything that I can show you again this morning?
If you could please just run back over how to it's when you don't want to send your co-buyer the information, that piece.
Oh yeah. So in DocuSign, I do not recommend sending documents to your co-op agent. So there isn't really anything that you have to do to prevent that, other than in the details tab here. I would just recommend when you go down to for our example today, if we go down to buyer's agent 1, you can just leave your buyer's agent information blank here and don't include an email address. And then when you're in the envelope, I'll just click on new and just to show you really quickly. All right, let me just add the purchase and sale agreement really quickly. All right. When you come here to add recipients and we select pre-tagged roles, just ignore all the buyer ones. Don't add buyer agent. And that's all you need to do. So, I mean, there isn't like anything you have to actively do to prevent it. Just know that whenever you see these pop-up options, just avoid. I don't need that. I just need seller 1, seller 2, and listing agent, and you'll be good to go.
Okay, thanks.
You are welcome. Any other questions or anything else I can clarify for you this morning? Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys sticking around. I know it's a very long training. It's a lot of information. DocuSign is definitely one of those programs that the more you play in it, the more comfortable you're going to get. So as you're starting to work in DocuSign and putting together offers or anything, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can call me, text me, email me. I'd rather you give me a call on a Saturday evening to troubleshoot something within DocuSign that it's going to take 3 or 4 minutes versus doing anything that could prevent you from missing out on that offer. Also, if you need some more one-on-one time, in my email signature, there's a Calendly link and you can set up one-on-one time to meet in person or on Zoom, whichever works best for you. So you let me know how I can help support you and help you grow your business through technology. Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you all soon.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.